So I have a question that is going to sound really simple, but is actually surprisingly complex. Can poi touch people? Like, really touch people deep inside? Without an introduction, context, or the ability to hear the accompanying music, could someone tell what emotion I was trying to capture with a poi piece? Is it possible for all those abstract shapes and body movements to translate into a wide array of real and genuine emotions within a viewer as they watch it? Can I express myself with the prop in a way that anybody, regardless of whether they're familiar with poi or not, will see something that they can relate to or recognize within themselves? My name is Drex, and I'm a dancer and poi spinner from Washington, D.C., and I have been preoccupied with these and many other questions for many years. If poi is an art like music, painting, or film, can it accomplish the same things that those mediums do? Poi, in many respects, is challenging. It doesn't resemble any part of the human body, and performing with it forces us to move in ways that are counterintuitive and sometimes quite alien. This creates quite a challenge in conveying an ideal with it. Oftentimes, the movement vocabulary of the prop can act as a barrier to us exploring a full range of movement expression, or even be able to move in a way that is recognizable to the lay person. Dancers can express an emotion throughout their entire bodies. Our tool palette seems to be much more limited. A lot of performers then have opted to avoid exploring that territory at all. If they write something meant to convey powerful emotions, they'll use accompanying music or an introduction to make that intent clear to the audience. And frequently, these pieces do have an impact. But what if poi were capable of something more? What if we could use it in a way that didn't require an explanation or the crutch of musical accompaniment to make the intention clear? What if with the poi, and the poi alone, we could have the same impact that other art forms do? When I look at one of my favorite paintings by Monet, what I see is not just loose brushwork and the figures of his wife and son sketched out on a breezy day. What I see is what I believe he was feeling that day, a moment of perfect contentment with his family that he wanted to capture and fix in paint for all time. When I hear Collapse by Sparta, I hear a young man screaming into the void, asking what the meaning of it all is with equal parts dread, fear, and awe. I hear him pass through moments of intense vulnerability and intense catharsis. When I look at Basquiat's Boy and a Dog and a Johnny Pump, I see remarkable and explosive joy. I see a child having the time of his life and Basquiat capturing his moment of innocent happiness in the most vivid colors. This painting makes me smile every time I see it. When I watch Wake Up Dead Man and see Father Judd's face change as he talks to the woman on the phone, I see a person who has been suddenly reminded of his calling amid the siren song of his own ego. When he asks the woman what her mother's name was, I see her treated with such empathy and kindness that I cannot watch this scene without tearing up. My experiences with each of these creative works, and many, many others, have been incredibly powerful, and they've been incredibly inspiring, and they've been incredibly insightful. These are the kinds of experiences I want to create with poi. I want to touch people by performing with my prop in the same way that works of art have touched me. I don't just want them to see a series of tricks. I want them to feel pangs in their heart, tears welling up in their eyes, and an involuntary grin beam across their faces. And is that even possible? I'd certainly like to think so. And if nothing else, as they say, shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you'll still land among the stars. So, how exactly does one go about building a rocket then? For me, it starts with one simple but very important principle. The poi is an extension of me. I don't think poi inherently limits our capacity to move. If anything, I believe poi amplifies the movements of our bodies. It broadcasts our movements, ideas, and feelings at a volume the human form is incapable of producing on its own. We can take up so much more room and be seen from such a greater distance. We may have to use a different movement vocabulary, but with our poi, our bodies can speak louder than they can on their own. Whether we like to admit it or not, our relationship with poi, in many respects, is a reflection of our relationship with ourselves. A poi cannot spin itself. It cannot throw itself. It cannot formulate an idea of what uses for itself will be the most aesthetically pleasing. All of these things have to come from the performer. And that also means the poi can become an instrument through which we channel other things within us. Things such as our feelings, big and small. Exploring grief and sadness. exploring shame and guilt, exploring anger and frustration, exploring joy and delight. When I go out to create with my poi, it's to channel these feelings, to give voice to them with my full body and work through them. That work is critical to me both as an artist and as a human being, and there's an important reason why. One cannot channel their inner world into an external one without having enough self-love and regard to give that interior world voice. It is a way of engaging in self-acceptance in a very material way and of sharing oneself with the world around them. And the act of channeling those emotions into movement in and of itself can function as a form of emotional regulation, creating a channel through which we can direct all those big feelings and burn through them like a candle burning through a wick. But I also think there's more to it than just that, because if it were simply about giving voice to one's own feelings, then one could do that privately. So what purpose is there in sharing them? I think the answer is connection. Personally, I think that most, if not all, conflict comes from the creation of the other, seeing other people and their motivations as alien to and in opposition or competition to our own. This leads to dehumanization and gives ourselves and others permission to act out of cruelty. When we look at a work of art that touches us, it creates a moment of connection and reminds us that there are human beings out there who experience the same challenges and joys that we ourselves do. This breaks down barriers and makes us feel less isolated. Art carries with it this tremendous ability to bridge the gaps between us, to humanize those we would otherwise disagree with, and recognize other people are going through what we are too. Making art is an act of profound empathy and courage. If conflict is driven by the other, by the separation of ourselves from those that we encounter, then the antidote to it is connection. When we break through the barrier of other and instead see what we have in common. And I think that starts with the prop I hold in my hands. It starts with recognizing it not as something apart from me, but as a part of me. As much a part of me as my fingers, eyes, and my heart. If we can accept that we are one with a ball on the end of a string, with an object this foreign, we can also accept that we are one with the people that we hope to touch. I share my poi dance pieces because I hope they'll reach a person and create connection, that in my art they'll see their own emotions, experiences, and thoughts reflected back at them, and it'll help them to feel less alone. I want my spinning to bring comfort in moments of great difficulty, and I want to honor my creative spirit and joy. I want to create something beautiful, even if just for a moment. When we touch people, when we share something with them that they recognize as part of our shared humanity, it also helps them too. But unfortunately, there are a lot of obstacles to getting there for poi. The use of a niche prop to convey emotion is definitely one such obstacle. The first thought that enters into the head of somebody seeing it for the first time is to wonder what that object being spun is. In many respects, it allows them to skip the step of seeing the performer themselves, and instead focus on the object. To say nothing of conveying a real emotion using nothing but the movement of the body and an inanimate object. How do you make a weave read as angry? How do you make it read as sad? How do you make it read as sexy? How do you make it read as shameful? How do you make it read as sassy? This is no small task, but personally, I think the answer starts with honesty. When we are expressing ourselves from a place of honesty, I think the core humanity of the performer shines through. I think this transcends barriers of language, background, and unfamiliarity with the prop specifically, because that core honesty is recognizable to anyone. Honesty makes that which is within transparent, even if there's an inanimate object in the way. Being honest with the prop not only cuts through the initial shock of seeing it, but also connects the performer directly to their audience. That said, identifying those moments can be a bit of a challenge. How do we know when we are being honest, not only with ourselves, but also with our prop? Many of us struggle with this on a day-to-day basis, even without trying to filter it through a movement art. Your mileage on this point may vary, but in general, I tend to find that my most honest moments are the ones when I feel a welling up of emotions, powerful emotions. Frequently, I'll come to tears in those moments as I'm able to access truths within me, regardless of the topics that they address. When I create, I'm usually not trying to write so much as I'm trying to listen. I'm trying to receive and be open for ideas to come to me both from within as well as without. This means trusting that process and showing up regularly to work and practice so I'm in a place to receive these ideas. But I also find that's how I produce my best work. This also puts any performer pursuing this goal in a very, very vulnerable position, and I'll circle back around to that point in a minute. But first, I want to explore another piece of the answer, and I think that is beauty. Regardless of what we create, we do so in the knowledge that our existence and the existence of whatever we create is fleeting. And when we do create, in many respects, it is to make that experience more pleasant in some way. We try to make or surround ourselves with beautiful things to improve the condition of our time here. Not only does that make the trials of existence easier to navigate, it also helps foster connections by assembling our ideas into constructions that invite those connections. Even artists whose work exists to react to or provoke a response to the label or quest for beauty are still framing their work around this concept, even if it's to stand firmly outside of it. Honesty requires beauty in order to hone it into a form that invites connection, and beauty requires honesty to have a core of integrity to it. Being able to tap into both is a skill and a discipline that requires a lot of time to hone. I think we can create work that is both honest and beautiful to ourselves at any point in our creative journey, but that creating work that truly fosters connection is a much longer process that requires a great deal of self-assessment and occasional revision. So if the goal is to create works of poi spinning and dancing that connect with honesty and beauty and function as works of art unto themselves, how exactly do we go about achieving that goal? How do we know that our work reads and stands up on its own without using music or context as a crutch? In my experience, the answer is to evaluate the work in isolation, watching rehearsals on mute and divorced from any other context. Can I see my emotion broadcast purely in the way that I'm spinning? It can become very clear very quickly which moments lack honesty, and also whether the pieces fit together in a way that's beautiful. The interesting irony is that without the music or other context, I frequently find not only that I have more work to do to make the intention clear, but also that the expressive capabilities of poi are far greater than I'd originally imagined. I am continually surprised by what I discover in moments that I don't expect. With the poi to broadcast and amplify my movement, moments that I originally believed to be insignificant take on a weight that can be shocking and powerful. And if you'd like to go more in depth on composition with poi and how to go about doing it, I have a video up on my main channel as a companion video to this one that I'd recommend. Not only does it go through several important tools for composition, but it also gives plenty of examples so you can see them in action. Do check that out at the link down in the description and up in the cards. So now let's talk about that vulnerability question, because it turns out to be an important one. We create so many barriers to people being able to connect with and truly know themselves. And I don't think these barriers ultimately make anybody happier. I think they just make us more afraid of truly being seen, and that prevents us from achieving connection. Because ultimately, we come to believe the only way that we can achieve connection is through performing a version of ourselves that we believe will be more socially acceptable. Honesty is genuine. It's challenging. It's risky. And if I'm going to be real, I think the world needs a whole lot more of it. I think we need more people willing to take risks and be real with both themselves and others. And I think it results in better art. I rarely go back and look at my work from the first 8 years of my career with any kind of real fondness, or really look at it much at all. Very little of it feels very genuine to me. I risked very little, so there's very little that I feel I can still connect with. But something kind of magical happened for me when I started learning how to be more vulnerable and started expressing real emotion through my work. I actually started to like it, and the connections that I made through it. I love going back and watching these more expressive performances. Each time I do, I discover something new and wonderful. I see moments that bring a smile to my face, or make my adrenaline surge, or even bring tears to my eyes. More than that, I see comments from people who felt deeply touched by what I was doing, moments that brought them comfort or helped them realize what they themselves were feeling. And for the first time in my career, it's work that I'm actually proud of, regardless of how many views or likes they get. When I watch one dance video, I just want to watch more. It is work that is deeply fulfilling to me and that I never get tired of revisiting. And more importantly, it makes me excited to create more in the future. My favorite piece is always the one I'm going to write and discover next. And man, I wish more of that for everyone. So, where does that leave us? I love art. Great art inspires transcendent experiences in me and others, and channels deep truths and feelings. And that's what I want for poi as an art form. I think that takes a great deal of dedication, vulnerability, and work. But I think that said work is important not just to ourselves, but also the broader world. It helps us to attain self-acceptance and creates connections that break down barriers between ourselves and others. This is what I want to achieve in my own work, and the thing I look for frequently in the work of others too. It's important to me, the ambition I'm trying to achieve in my own art. And in making the attempt, whether successful or not, I learn a lot about myself, what I'm capable of, and what this art form is capable of as well. So, if you find any part of that goal inspiring, I hope you'll join me on that journey. And if not, that's cool too. I hope you achieve your own goals, whatever they happen to be. Make art, express yourself, and make a connection with somebody in the process if you can. And if you don't mind, give me a like, comment, and a follow as well while you're at it. Thank you.